Ever since I played the Fallout series when I was younger, I was enamored by the post-apocalyptic world. Whether it was the depictions of society after civilization's breakdown or on the brink of it, the stories felt genuine to me, even in a distorted setting. Many games like Half-Life, the Metro series, and Fallout use their world building, quests, and NPCs to mirror real-life events, emotions, and themes, so that the player can make connections to their own world. One of the strongest connections for me was playing Fallout 3. Walking around a ruined Washington, D.C. was breathtaking and awe-inspiring in every sense of the word. For someone who had visited D.C. so many times, seeing it altered like this was jarring, but also somehow exciting. Something I knew yet so completely changed it begged to be explored. That's why I love Stalker Gamma. After playing more than 400 hours in this game, I can certainly say that Stalker Gamma does one of the best jobs at connecting the player to the environment, and ensuring the player has nothing but the thought of exploring just one more area, looting one more dead monolith, or upgrading one more AK-12. Stalker Gamma is a mod for the Stalker series. It's a compilation of more than 400 mods that somehow all come together in the most beautiful of ways. A very big thank you to the people that dedicate their time to these things. When you load up a new game of Gamma, you might be a little overwhelmed, and that's okay. I would highly recommend playing the original Stalker games before playing Gamma, not just for the story, but for the feeling of the series. We will get into it a little bit later, but Gamma is not so straightforward story-wise as the original. You have 9 factions to start with, and luckily, the game will tell you if you're crazy for picking a certain one. I love this concept in games. Before you even load into the first map, you get a sense of the scale of the place you're about to embark on. Stalker factions and their interpersonal reputations between each other create this amazing feeling of unease. Knowing which factions want to kill you because of your affiliation means you'll be checking every person walking in the distance before approaching them. Playing different factions and additional playthroughs is also highly rewarding. Gamma has 2 sets of weapons, NATO and Warsaw. Some playthroughs you'll be tied to one or the other until late game, and having access to different hubs even without major interactional changes feels really cool. It's also kind of an eerie feeling. I can't explain it, but when I started a new game as a Monolith character after just beating the game as a free Stalker, starting out in Pripyat, one of the final areas of the main game, at the beginning was one of those wow moments. Walking up to the crazy guy after just having a 10-minute firefight with him and being able to accept quests really opened up the world that I was playing in. Going back to the start, hover over the options if you're interested in learning about any of them, but the base is pretty set. Maybe make the difficulty easier, up to you. You also get a little neat point RPG system for items at the start. Nothing is really explained, but I'd highly recommend a shotgun or a sniper. You won't be getting anything fancy for a very long time. Some water and food wouldn't hurt, maybe some meds, and you're at points. Gamma does a very interesting job at resource management. If you've played games like Escape from Tarkov, the learning curve is a bit steep. Almost every item in Gamma has a purpose, sort of. Based on your choices in the settings about progression, you'll have to be dismantling everything you find. You'll be ecstatic by finding half a used barrel for a gun or a Kevlar vest for your armor. Even though there's a tooltip about the importance of crafting, when I was a new player, I didn't understand the true power of crafting for resource management. By completing quests for your faction or for other factions, you'll get access to stashes, Gamma's main way of progression. These stashes can give great loot, and really the most important loot being your crafting tools. All of the scraps of gear, parts, mean nothing without tools, which was frustrating as a new player at the start of the game. You won't have access to personally repairing your armor without light, medium, heavy armor repair kits, or fixing your malfunctioning gun without an advanced toolkit. Yet, for how frustrating that might be, it's a great catalyst for the player taking on more quests and exploring more of the zone. The necessity for these tools, plus the loot you'll have before the tools, really made me want to progress more, see more of the world, understand the motivations of the occupants of the zone, and also take their loot. I think my starting shotgun was around 32%, which in Gamma terms means the absolute joy and accomplishment I felt after killing the bandit leader to get a stash with a historic kit meaning I could repair Bertha, yes, I named her, was almost unmatched in my gaming experience. And that feeling is with pretty much every facet of the game. For every historic repair kit is an advanced toolkit, gunsmithing kit, drug lab kit, etc., all allowing the player to do more and feel more accomplished. It makes the player feel like they're shaping their own world. Their choices solely make them survive, and unfortunately, their choices also can get them killed. A lot. But that's not for everyone, and it wasn't for me until it really clicked. As I mentioned before, you can go into settings and make the loot tables much more to your liking, but I'd really try a game without any overt meddling. When it comes to atmosphere, Gamma accomplishes so much without feeling heavy-handed. I remember playing Resident Evil 5 and getting chased by a boulder, a scene akin to Indiana Jones, but it felt so gimmicky it took me out of the moment, and don't get me started with punching of rocks. Gamma's atmosphere is organic. There are moments where I felt like this had to be scripted or a pseudo cutscene, but it's not. It's just the zone. Exploring as the sun goes down and you hear the light pitter-patter of the rain starting to fall, the radiation starts to tick up as you move slower, your visibility ever waning, keeping your volume at 100 and listening for any sound, knowing it could be your last step. The zone itself is a marvel. So many times did I stop and stare off into the distance, appreciating the utter beauty that this game brings. These moments built up within me. As I stated previously, I believe that good world building creates connections with players, and I was feeling like the zone was starting to become home. I started remembering areas like the back of my hand, knowing where almost all factions were and where to hide during psi storms. But the zone is not that predictable. Another amazing mechanic of the game which creates longevity playtime-wise is the shifting of anomalies, creatures, and patrols after psi storms. The zone completely changes. Where an anomaly once was, has moved. Did you come this way like a day ago and saw no mutants? Well, get ready to be chased up a rock by 10 dogs. These subtle or drastic changes make the zone feel fluid. Even though the map is not changing, this static yet malleable effect truly elevated the zone as an almost infinite playable sandbox. Story-wise, Gamma has some really interesting things to offer the player. I'd highly advise starting as a free Stalker and going down the vanilla path. This will lead you on a quest to find S.T.A.L.K.E.R, the protagonist of the original series. If you're looking for a fully voice-acted storyline, Gamma doesn't have it. I'm a big fan of games like Morrowind with text speech, but I can understand if that's not someone's cup of tea. Other factions do have their own unique quest lines, but I found it not as immersive as other Stalker mods that are additions to the story. Personally, I've fallen in love with the zone and the lore of the Stalker series. I think it was an amazing story choice to set Stalker in a place well known to the world. A place which already carries a dark backstory and seeds for conspiracy and cover-up. Going on YouTube and watching documentaries about Chernobyl to modern-day footage of Pripyat made the zone even more real. Gameplay-wise, Gamma plays like a hardcore shooter. Again, if you've played Escape from Tarkov, Squad, Gamma is unforgiving and intense. You'll need to be using cover wherever you can find it, flanking when you get pushed, and sometimes just hoping that duo of Snorks jumps at the mercenary running straight at you. Gamma's zones are greatly diversified, leading to amazing gun battles spanning swamps, cities, large plains, and underground bunkers. There was never a moment where I felt, this feels the same. Each encounter could be life or death, and that tension combined with the changing areas always kept me on my toes. If everything else was the pie, the sound design is the oven. I highly recommend playing with your best headphones. The soundscape of Gamma is one of the creepiest and disturbing spectrums I've ever played. You could be walking down a deserted street in outskirts and start to hear whistling, or moving through the swamp with tall grass and only hearing the steady trampling of some large mutant. From the menu music to the ambient music and sound, everything comes together. So, what do you want? If you want an intense hardcore survival shooter with one of the best atmospheres in gaming, then I'd highly recommend checking out Stalker Gamma. If you feel like laborious crafting and grinding mechanics are not fun, I would shy away. All in all, I think you should give Gamma a try, if not for the many hours of frights, adrenaline, and memories. Thank you so much for watching. I always appreciate comments on your thoughts on the games I review, and as always, I'll cover what you want: gaming.